For more than 200 years, the U.S. State Department has been America's face to the world. But right now, that face is getting a really dramatic and, you could say, controversial makeover. We're going to unpack the huge changes happening inside this historic institution and what it all means for America's place on the global stage. And that's the big question here, isn't it? What happens when you do that? Because this isn't just a fresh coat of paint. We're talking about a fundamental rewiring of how the U.S. talks to and works with the rest of the planet. And the fallout from that, well, it has implications for everybody.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll dive into the shakeup itself. Then we'll get a quick refresher on what the State Department actually is. From there, we'll look at the new foreign policy map being drawn. Then we'll follow the money in a pretty fierce budget battle. And finally, we'll see how Congress is trying to draw its own lines in the sand.
Okay, let's get right to the heart of it. This whole story really kicks off in early 2025. That's when a new administration came in and decided the State Department didn't just need a few tweaks, it needed a complete overhaul. So under an executive order and the leadership of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the department kicked off this huge reorganization. The stated goal? To cut through the bureaucracy and refocus its entire mission. Basically, they're aiming to get rid of offices whose work is seen as not quite lining up with current U.S. national security interests. And this reorganization, it's had a very real, very human impact. By the middle of 2025, about 3,000 employees were no longer with the department. And that's not just a number on a page. It represents a major downsizing of the diplomatic workforce, whether through job cuts, retirements, or people choosing to leave. Okay, so with all this change swirling around, it's probably a good idea to just take a quick step back. What exactly is this institution that's at the center of this whole storm? Simply put, the State Department is America's diplomatic arm. It was created way back in 1789, which makes it the oldest agency in the cabinet. Its leader, the Secretary of State, is the president's #1 foreign affairs advisor. It's really the engine room of U.S. foreign policy, handling everything from big treaty negotiations all the way down to issuing your passport. Now, what's so fascinating is who actually makes up that engine. You've got roughly 80,000 people in the department's global workforce. But look at this. A massive 64% are locally employed staff. These are people from the host countries where the U.S. operates. The iconic foreign service officers we always hear about, they're actually a much, much smaller piece of the pie. All right, so you've got this massive global organization. How exactly is it being restructured? Well, it really all comes down to redrawing the internal map of who has the power and the influence. And this is where you really see the core of the change. Power is shifting, and it's shifting dramatically. On one side, you have the 6 regional bureaus, the ones that handle relationships with specific parts of the world. They're being seriously empowered. But on the other side, the functional bureaus, which tackle big global issues like climate change or human rights, they're being downsized or even eliminated. This signals a really big shift away from global cooperation and toward one-on-one, country-to-country relationships. And you have to remember, this restructuring affects a huge global footprint. We're talking about more than 30 bureaus that oversee nearly 300 diplomatic posts all over the world. Every single one of these embassies and consulates is now working under this new, more decentralized model. And that fundamentally changes how American diplomacy is done on the ground every single day. Now, when you have a shakeup this big, it's pretty much guaranteed to lead to a fight over the money. And this is where the conflict gets really, really intense. Before we jump into the numbers, we need to understand a key term here, the pocket rescission. Okay, think of it like this. It's basically a presidential power to cancel money that Congress has already approved. And it can only be used when Congress isn't in session. So as you can imagine, it's a powerful and, pretty controversial tool to have in any budget battle. And this isn't just some theoretical thing. On August 29th, 2025, the administration actually used a pocket rescission to cancel over $5 billion in funding for the State Department and foreign operations. The reasoning given was that these funds went against its America First priorities. Okay, and this is where the numbers get really stark. Just look at the difference here. Between 2022 and 2024, the State Department and its related programs got on average around $70 billion a year. The administration's net request for fiscal year 2026, just $9.2 billion.
I mean, that is a staggering, almost unbelievable reduction. It's the visual centerpiece of this entire conflict. But of course, Congress holds the power of the purse, and they aren't just going along with that number. The House Appropriations Committee fired back with its own proposal, $46.4 billion. Now, that's way, way more than the administration asked for, but it's still a huge cut compared to recent years. And that just sets the stage for what's going to be a massive negotiation.
And, this whole fight isn't just about the money. There's a parallel battle going on over the actual laws and the authority that dictate how the State Department is even allowed to operate.
So, in response to all the changes coming from the administration, the House Foreign Affairs Committee decided to take action. They passed this whole package of 9 different bills. And the goal here is basically for Congress to legislate its own vision for the department, to try and reassert some control over its structure and its mission.
And of course, there are 2 very different ways of looking at this legislative push. On the one hand, supporters say this package is absolutely necessary to reestablish command and control and give diplomats the tools they need to succeed. But on the other side, you have critics arguing that the bills are excessively partisan and, kind of ironically, that they don't actually provide enough real oversight for the very department they're trying to reshape. So that's pretty much where things stand. You have a State Department with a totally new internal map, it's facing a dramatically smaller budget, and it's caught in this massive tug of war between the White House and Congress. Which, at the end of the day, leaves us with the ultimate question. When all the dust settles from this, what will America's role in the world actually look like?